If you've ridden the Kings Island and Miami Valley Railroad at any point, you've probably been told a certain story, but is it true? Hello, everybody. Alongside Don Helbig, I'm Ryan Suhr, and this is Tower Topics.
Tower Topics is a podcast by Kings Island fans for Kings Island fans because that's who we are and that's who we care about.
Okay, so you're riding the Kings Island Miami Valley Railroad. You're going from the Sunabe Station in Rivertown. This is not a math problem, by the way. I know that's how it sounds. You're going from Sunabe towards Soak City. You pass Soak City, and you're always told a story about the fort. And what's inside the fort, Don?
Well, inside the fort, there is an old house built in the 1800s. It was left on property when Kings Island, Tap Broadcast, they purchased the land. The urban legend goes, and this is what I was told by people that worked in the public relations department back in the 1980s, that the house was part of the agreement when they purchased the land and got the deed and everything, was that they would not tear this down. Didn't really matter at the time because the train route at the time, there wasn't the water park.
Yeah.
So it kind of ventured around, which is now part of the water park, and then cut back in and then went through the town. So it got rerouted when Waterworks opened in 1989. Now, originally there was what they called Fort McHale. That was the big fort that was out by the water park, where that now stands there. And they would go around and they would always talk, the storyline that they had would kind of describe, why they built the fort. And they would say that was the safest place to be, when there were different attacks and things. But once the water park was built, they had to tear this down because there's now slides and things there. So they rerouted it and they brought it around where that old house was sitting. Well, you can't have the house in the middle of the train ride, right? So, and the fort was kind of a cool thing, for guests when they would ride the train. They like seeing that. So they rebuilt a much smaller fort around the house. And, so that has been there, since the 1800s and all the years that Kings Island has owned the park. Now it's not in, great shape. Now at the beginning, there were some of the Kings Island's maintenance staff actually lived in that house in the 1970s. It's been vacant, since the 90s and that, but not in great shape today. So if you were to go in there and look at it, there wouldn't be much to see. As the trees have grown up around it and everything, they've kind of the branches that have kind of gone through windows and so it's almost like Mystic Timbers where it's been taken over by the land.
You beat me to that joke, Don. I was totally gonna make that joke. I actually was thinking like, I wish I had the teaser video for Mystic Timbers queued up since you said that. But yeah, so today I learned that this fort was not there the whole time. I didn't know until you told me that they built this fort.
Yeah, the train didn't come around that side. I mean, it kind of cut on the other side of it, where you couldn't really see the house when you were riding the train back in the day.
Yeah.
In the 70s up to 1988. There was that other fort, Fort McHale was part of the storyline that they would talk about. But when they rerouted it and had to shorten the track a little bit, they had to bring it around that way. So now the train, when it cuts around that fort, leaving Soak City, it's up against, almost a parking lot, out there. You can, kind of see the train going by. That wasn't the case before. I mean, it was off the beaten path a little bit. So, that got rerouted and they had to have a solve for this house that they promised they wouldn't tear down. And the solve was, let's put a fort around it.
Does Kings Island ever do anything that's not like interesting? I mean, between the origins of the park being that they moved another park, and that's what Kings Island is, to things like this. But that's fascinating.
Yeah, but there's been stories about, it was a green room for the actors when they had live actors. No, it wasn't that. It was actually lived in, by a couple of Kings Island's maintenance, workers, which, we had confirmation from Dennis Spiegel on that, among other people. And those are the stories that I was always told, by the Kings Island PR staff. And I didn't even, think about that house until I saw the new fort around it in 1989. I was like, what's in there? And they're like, oh, there's a house. Well, why is there a house? Well, we couldn't tear it down. So I learned about it in 1989.
Mm.
I've had times, when I was a guest, I had the opportunity. I was brought back before the park opened. They wanted to show me what it looked like, so I saw that in the 1990s, the early 90s, and uh, an opportunity when I worked there, to check it out again a couple of times. And like I said, it's not in great shape. And I made the Mystic Tempers reference where it's kind of been taken over by the land, and uh, you really wouldn't want to see it.
No, I mean, anything beyond a morbid curiosity, and there's nothing really to see. But, so it's funny because a lot of this has come to light for me, at least, and I feel like a lot of people would be in the same boat as me, from the outside looking in. Because for one, I I always thought that that was the green room for the actors. So we're fine. So you're telling me that that was never the green room for the actors on the train.
No,
Okay.
no, it was
So
not that.
so maintenance people lived in it. Did they live in it as the park was being built, or did they live in it
No, why they worked there? I mean, in the, early 70s.
is it like how firemen live at the firehouse? Like, did they have
Yeah,
24-hour
yeah, kind of
shifts?
like that.
That's funny.
Yeah, yeah, kind of
But
like
the
that.
other thing is, I never believed the whole story about they agreed never to tear the house down because I feel like that's like folklore, and I thought that was kind of like not true. But again, we were just speaking to Dennis Spiegel, and
But if you got somebody holding out though, Ryan, and you want to buy, these 700 plus acres that they were buying, and you've got one family that's not going to sell, I mean, you have to make agreements like that in order to get them to sell.
yeah, I'm glad they went this route instead of intimidating them. You know, but I always thought that that was just folklore because that doesn't sound normal, you know. But again, we
But you have to ask yourself, why else would it still be there? I mean, why would they have left? I mean, if they could have torn it down, they would have torn it
well, my
down.
my my
You
thought
know,
was this. I thought the house was there. I never doubted that the house was there from before the park was there. And like, let's play with the idea that that was the green room for the actors because this is just a story I believed. So they used it up until like the 80s or whatever. And then at that point, it's kind of like, well, we can just put a fort around it and not have to pay to tear it down, you know? So that was always
yeah,
my
but it
thought.
wasn't even close to where the way the train route was
Mhm.
and where the live actors were. I mean, that wasn't even close to where they were working to even have it as a green room for them. I mean, it was we're talking about being over on the Soak City side of that. I mean, it was pretty far away.
Yeah. But again, we were speaking to Dennis Spiegel just right before we started recording, and we ran a couple of these because we had a couple of these episodes that we're recording tonight where it's kind of like it's folklore versus fact and what the park says versus what the historical records say versus what you remember versus what I've heard and stuff like that. So we were like, okay, level with us. Like, did they have the agreement where you couldn't tear down the house? He's like, oh yeah, yeah, that was the agreement. So there's your answer. I mean, if anybody knows, it's him. I guess we could always back it up with Gary Walks one day, but that's fascinating. But Don, not a lot of people have seen the house before, and
No, they have
I
not.
feel like we might be able to change that. So, should we show him the house?
Go ahead.
Okay.
This is why you want to watch on
Yeah,
YouTube.
if you're not watching on YouTube, you're missing out. So, again, the house built in what we believe is 1800s. It was maintenance people lived in it. They built a fort around it for when they built the water park because the train came too close to it. And we're going to show you that house right after this. Okay, the house, Don. Oh, it's a mansion, isn't it beautiful? I feel like this is both satisfying to see it, but it's also kind of like anticlimactic in terms of okay, it's an old house that's like falling down, and this is what we've all been wondering about for all these years, you know?
Well, that's not a recent photo. I
No,
can tell you that.
no, no. In fact, I think I remember a couple years ago taking the train, and it looked like maybe like a tree had fallen. Like it looked like the house had collapsed from what you could see just going by on the train. So I don't even know if this is probably the house at its best over the past 10 years or so. But
Yeah, when I went in there, I think it was 2007, 2008, maybe.
mhm.
Some of us went to check it out, and out of curiosity, and it was something that you didn't really want to walk into it. You just looked at it from the outside. You just you stepped your foot inside the door or something, just kind of looked around, but um, you didn't know how long that had been neglected, the condition of the flooring and all those kind of things. So there wasn't going to be any chances with that. But just out of curiosity, it was just something, and whether it was 2007, 8, whatever it was, the team that we had there, some of us went out and wanted to take a look. Everybody had heard the stories and that, and uh, but it wasn't. It looked a little bit better than it does in this picture, from my memory back then. But uh, yeah, but that's what's inside the fort.
Do you think they'll ever reopen the fort? Not that it was ever open. That's a total joke, but yeah. So we want to hear your thoughts. So you had always heard, or well, they've always told the story of that they could never, tear down the house and stuff. What have you heard? Down in the comments, let us know. What did you always heard about the house and what was in there and what they used it for and so on? Tell us the story that you always heard, because now you know for real what's going on. Um,
Yeah, and like I said, it was not something that was part of the original train ride where the course did take you through what is now Soak City and then brought you right now where you go past Soak City. That was kind of where you came back around
mhm.
and back through the town that way. So uh, when they had to reroute it, 1989, that house is right there. Like, well, we can't have it going around a house. We got to do something here. Oh, the fort was popular. Let's build a little fort around it. The other fort was massive when it first opened, Fort McHale.
Yeah.
That was real impressive
So
looking.
where
And
was
this was like a real small thing compared to that.
so was there anything else to Fort McHale, or was it just like I see the building on the right and I do recognize that, so I can kind of place where it is, but so it had this fence line. And was there anything else to it besides that?
No, I mean it had like what you would picture like a Ford, kind of looked like the one now, but just bigger in scale.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Well, Don, let me ask you this. Nobody's ever going to go in that house again, I hope. I would encourage nobody to ever try, not that you would have the opportunity. So while you're not trying to get into that house, what would you do to look really, really good while you're riding the Kings Island and Miami Valley Railroad and you're telling all your friends that you've now seen a picture of the house?
Well, if you aren't wearing a shirt like I'm wearing right now, which this shirt, by the way, Ryan, allows me to announce myself with authority.
Mm,
But if you're not wearing a shirt like this, you would want to wear a Tower Topics t-shirt.
mm.
It's got the Tower Topics logo. It's on a North Carolina blue color. Comes in whatever size you would need. And fans of the show can purchase the shirt for just $22. That includes shipping. And to make the purchase, it's as simple as just dropping us a direct message on our X, which is Tower_Topics, and we'll send you the link to purchase through Venmo. If you do not have X, you can message us on YouTube, or if you follow either one of us on Facebook, see us out and about somewhere, something like that. We'll make the necessary arrangements to get you one of those shirts. And we're seeing them popping up in a lot of different places, not just at Kings Island with guests wearing them. Uh, the American Coaster Enthusiast has a European tour right now, and somebody was wearing a Tower Topic shirt in Holland, of all places. So we appreciate the support for the show. It's a real comfortable T-shirt. You'll look great wearing it.
Yeah, I agree. Great shirts. I really, really enjoy it. And we always appreciate the support we see around the park and around the world when you're wearing your Tower Topics t shirt. So we'll be right back with the listener questions. All right. First listener question from Joseph D., Mount Washington, Kentucky. Sunabe Station was not torn down with the ride. What was the reason it was left standing? Also, it's easily accessible by going over a gate in the Bats queue. Have guests ever ventured to it when they weren't supposed to? What future plans do you think the park has for that station? Thanks, guys.
Well, I mean, obviously, there's a reason why they didn't tear it down. One of them was it was going to be an opportunity to put the Halloween haunt maze in there, and that was Wolfpack. So they were able to use it for that while the ride was not operating anymore. Space was at a premium, so why not use it for that? But it was also, you don't know what you might do in that area. We're talking before Banshee was built, and that maybe you could repurpose the station if there was going to be another attraction ever built there. So you kind of have that in mind a little bit. You keep it for that as well. Now, as far as easily accessible by guests, I never heard anything about guests going back in there. I imagine, I guess you could, but
But don't.
I've not heard. Yeah, yeah, definitely don't do that. But I've not heard that people do. It has not been used for a haunt maze in recent years. As far as the future plans for that, who knows? I mean, it is one of those things. If you ever did want to put, and there's space to do it, where you could run it out between the Bat and Banshee and that. I mean, there's space to put something out there. That it would be a cost savings if you could kind of repurpose that station a little bit.
And the stations cost a fortune. Couple of things, Don. I don't think I think the Bat is worse off, but I think Son of Beast had a pretty bad location. So I think that would be less than ideal to reuse it. What are your thoughts on that?
Yes, I wouldn't put another ride, right there. I would go if you're going to put it in Action Zone. I mean, there's other places you could go with it. You could relocate, you know, the Extreme Fly, Sky Flyer attraction. You could move that depending on what you decide to do with Timberwolf. I mean, there's other places to go in Action Zone without having to repurpose that station for a new
I
ride.
see. I don't think it would destroy the look and feel of Action Zone or anything like that because it's not heavily wooded or anything. But my thought with that is that it's very off the beaten path. And just
Yes,
imagine the lines that the Bat would get if it was off the midway. Like they
yeah.
built it there out of necessity at the time.
I never understood why they put it that far back
Well,
there.
it's probably because of the wild animal
Did you?
habitat, I imagine.
Yeah, yeah. That was yeah. I mean, I could see that was part of the reason, but um, it is a hike to get back to the Bat. But then Son of Beast, where that's at, a lot of people would tell me that it's an eyesore. Sitting there,
Mhm.
it's really not something that's noticed by 99% of the guests don't even pay attention to it. When they go there, the ones that knew what it was, they're the ones that are going to call that out that it's an eyesore net. But you're right, it's off the beaten path. It's not really hurting anything, by being there. If they ever did want to, use it again for a haunt maze, they have the place to do it. Like I said, those spaces are at a premium.
Yeah.
So, but there were some reasons why it was, kept around.
So let me expand on this, Don. Why did they why did they tear down Vortex's station instead of and not Son of Beasts? You know what I mean?
It's a different, type of station. I think, when you're looking at that, that was right there, along the midway too. That would have been very noticeable that that ride, was formerly there and nothing is there now. So I think you have those factors too, that it was more in a prominent spot.
Yeah. I think that's fair to say. Um, so yeah, that's a really good question. I like I said, I don't think that, especially now. I was looking at it when I rode the Bat last time, and it's really, really overgrown now. So I don't think that there would be a huge temptation for somebody to try to get back there. Like I would get it if it was like clean cut and stuff, and then somebody was like, "Oh, there's something else here," because people sometimes jump fences and stuff like that, trying to get from point A to point B, whether they should or not. So I could see somebody jumping that fence thinking that they're just going to a different attraction or it's a different way up the exit. But now it's so overgrown that I don't think that anybody would even make that mistake. But very good question.
Yeah, but like I said, Vortex, it was a different, situation, different, station sitting there right on, the Coney Mall Midway right there, where everybody would see that it was still there and conjure up the memories of Vortex. There's not a ride there now, all those kind of things. Um, so that was one of the reasons I would say why that went and the other one stayed, because the other one was off the beaten path a bit.
Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna let you read the next listener question because I don't know why you picked this. This is very disrespectful.
Why did I pick this? Well, I picked it because as the questions come in, we try to get to
Oh, that's
everybody. We
true.
try not to ignore we try not to ignore the question. So if you have a question, just tag us on X, Tower_topics. We'll answer your questions. Nothing is out there that we won't address. But
Sure.
it says, and this is from Mark P. from Logansport, Indiana. Logansport, Indiana. Have you ever been there, Ryan?
No, but I'm about to go there and confront this person. Go ahead and read the question. Just read it.
Okay,
Just read it.
it says, has Ryan Suhr and Dexter Morgan ever been seen in the same place at the same time?
You know what's
Now, Dexter Morgan is a character in a series, I believe it was on Netflix, where he was a serial killer.
yeah.
So they want to know if you and Dexter Morgan have ever been seen in the same place at the
No,
same
I'm
time. And I guess, you know what I'm thinking of now that I think about it, Ryan,
Mhm.
I can see why someone might have asked this question.
You think so? Do you think I look? Because I think he's a pretty good looking guy. Now, granted, I had to Google him because I'd heard of Dexter. My brother was really really into that show. I never watched it, but he is a serial killer, and his serial killers. The reason why they're serial killers and not just like murderers is that they kill people in a series. It's either like teenage girls or African American, stuff like that. Well, his thing is he's a serial killer that only kills other serial killers. That was how it was explained to me. Uh,
Yeah, bad guys and stuff.
well, just serial killers, not just like he finds like somebody that stole and kills them. It's just serial killers. So, and like John Lithgow was in that and stuff. I do know a little bit about this series, but I don't know. Do you guys think that I look like him?
I can see why the question was asked. Okay,
I,
I can see
I
why
would like
Mark
for you to
would ask
expand
that
on
question.
why. Do you think that I look like him, or do you think that I act like a serial killer that kills serial killers?
For me, I think you kind of resemble the look.
Well, he seems like a pretty handsome guy for a serial killer and all. So, thank you, Don. You're a good friend. Oh my word.
Like I said, no, those are the type of questions. Like I said, if you got no question is, something that we won't place in there at some point in time.
Yeah, it's fair enough. I've never had that comparison. Now, I have been told several times that like I remind people of Daniel Tosh. If you guys remember Tosh.0, I get that. Not so much anymore because he's not on TV anymore. But 10 years ago, I used to get that all the time.
Who?
Daniel Tosh from Tosh.0 on Comedy Central. He used to watch YouTube videos and make fun of him, and like he was like super offensive and stuff. A lot like me. But I had one guy. I was at this place called Edgewood Tavern in Edgewood, Kentucky, and he had a few to drink. He was convinced that I was Tim Tebow for some reason. I had never had anybody. I don't look like Tim Tebow. I'm not built like Tim Tebow. I like to eat. He was convinced, and he came up to me probably 5 times in the hour and a half I was there, and said, "No, for real, you're not Tim Tebow." I don't even think he was like, "I'm drunk and this is funny." It was like, I'm really convinced of this, it was the strangest thing, but yeah. So enough about me.
So you get compared to any other people, or that's like people say you look like?
Those are the two that come to mind, but I guess that could be another comments thing. Do you think that me or Don look like any celebrities? Yeah.
Here's a funny story. Back before they redid the parking tolls at Kings Island on a Saturday,
Mhm.
um, several of us, including the general manager at the time, Greg Scheid, we would go out on a Saturday morning around 10:15, 10:20, and we would open up. There's like a road that comes in, toward Soak
Yeah.
City, and we would open that up to get cars in faster. And one car pulls up, and this woman in the car says, "Has anyone ever told you look like Bruce Willis?" After he got old.
After he got old is a caveat, though.
Yeah, after he got old. And I was like, no. I said, just you. And I really wanted to say, instead of parking at that time, was I think it was $15 or something. I was going to say 30, because of the comment or something. But yeah, that was really nice to hear that day. I looked like Bruce Willis after he got old.
Yeah, but an old Bruce Willis is still better looking than a young Don Helbig. Let's be honest here. Let us know in the
I don't know.
comments what's better looking. Okay, all right. So we're gonna end up in a fight here. Let's just stop. Hey,
We are.
I'm Ryan Suhr, along with Mr. Bruce Willis himself, Don Helbig, and this is Tower Topics.